this video, we're going to discuss importing parts using the API. So we're going to go through some of the different options and different methods that we can use to import a part, as well as we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between a component and an occurrence, which is really important as we move forward with other videos in the lecture series when we get into assemblies. So let's go ahead and go straight into the Autodesk Fusion 360 help page. So if we go onto the documentation and come into Import Manager, so just on the left, we can come into Import Manager. We notice here that it comes directly from the application. So once we have the application, we just need to do application.import manager, and we'll show you that in the code. But then here, notice we have a lot of different options, but there's actually only two different methods that actually import a part. You can either import it to a new document, or we can import it to a target. Importing to a target just imports it to a document that I already have open, or you can create a whole new document from it. In this example, we're going to import it to a target. So notice here that we have two parameters. We need the import options as well as a target. The target here, as it says, is a Fusion component. So we're just going to bring it into the root component, but you could also add it to a new component or something else. So that's the target, and then the import options. I'm actually going to go back and talk about all the different import options. So these are the different import options, and basically it's just your file type. So you can either do a DXF or a regular Fusion file, IGES, any of those. So we're going to be importing a Fusion part. So once we click here, basically all it needs is a file name. So let's go ahead and look at this in the code. So once again, once you get the options, I don't know if you remember, once you get the options, then you just need to pass in the options and the target, and it will create and it will import it to a target. So let's go ahead and look at that in the code. Notice from the beginning I get the application, and then import manager is just application.import manager. So once I have the import manager, let's go down here to where it actually imports. Notice I'm doing import manager.import to target, so it's going to come into the part that I already have open. And then I'm passing it in some options, and I'm passing it in the target. My target is just my root component, which we've seen before. And then my options is right here. Notice that I've done it through a Fusion archive import options. So it's going to be a Fusion file, and then I need to give it a file. So the file name I've done right here, and basically my file name is called Square Tooth Pulley. All of this here in front of it is basically just telling Fusion 360 where my file is. I'm just creating a file path and joining it to the one. Basically, it tells Fusion 360 to look in the folder that this script is in. So wherever I have this script saved, it's going to look in that same folder for this file name. So you can either copy this and do that exact method, which means you have to save this file in the same file that your script is in, or there are other ways to do that that we won't cover in this video. So once we pass in the options and we pass in the target, we'll go ahead and run this, and notice that it imports a pulley for me. If I go into Fusion, now we have a pulley here. So that's all that we have to talk about for importing. So there's several different options. You could do it with different file types, and then you can either do it to a new file or a new component, new part, or you can do it to the one that you already have open. So that's all for that, but we also want to discuss a little about the difference between an occurrence and an actual component. So this here, what you're viewing, is actually just an occurrence. We've imported the file and it's created a part, it's created a component, but that component isn't actually what you see. You see an occurrence. And if I wanted another occurrence of this, we could simply copy this. So let's create a new component. It calls it a component, but we're really just going to put an occurrence in there. So I'm going to copy this one and paste it right in here. So notice that we've got two of them here. They're actually both referencing the same component within Fusion. So that part that we imported, both of these occurrences are referencing the same part. So if we were to change that part, both of these would change. So it's really important that we understand that distinction, because as we move forward, when we use assemblies, we need to not be grabbing the part, we need to be grabbing the occurrence of each of these. So then if I wanted to constrain this at a certain point and constrain this one at a certain point, I'm grabbing the correct ones. And so you need to grab the occurrences, not just the component or not just the part. So let's go ahead and go back to the code and see what that is. Basically here what we're going to be doing, we're not going to be assembling it yet in this video, that will be in the next video or in the upcoming videos. But we just want to grab that occurrence. And so that's simple enough. We're just going to go to the root component, get a list of all of its occurrences, get the item, and then we're going to grab the latest one. So no matter how many there previously were, we're just going to take the very most recent one and we're going to call it pulley occurrence. That way we can keep track of this as we move forward in other videos. We can grab this occurrence and then later we will be able to constrain it to where we need to. So that's all in this video about importing. The next ones will go into a little bit more about assemblies and then parameters.